Welcome to Let's Talk. Here we will focus on the hustle, the juggle, and everyday struggle of small business. About their everyday struggles, stresses, and ways they have been able to overcome the challenges of running their business. We welcome questions and comments, so please feel free to email us at admin@PlemonsCPA.com. We hope you enjoy, and above all, we hope it helps. Welcome and thank you for joining us today on the Hustle, Juggle, and Struggle of Small Business. I am Thalia Williams, your hostess. We have in the studio today the phenomenal, fantastic, fabuloso Dr. Shantana Robinson, Dr. Bridge Builder. Welcome.
Thank you so much and good afternoon, everybody. That was a fabulous introduction, by the way. I feel very special.
Girl, you know you are. We're so glad and honored to have you on the show today. We just want to kind of chop it up a little bit. Let's talk about things that have been going on in the San Antonio area since COVID, during COVID, now that we're supposedly coming out of COVID. What have you been hearing? What's been in the pipeline? What's been the ear to the ground?
Well, you know, a lot has evolved. I like to say over the past 15 months because that's technically what it has been. It sounds crazy, but I think that now we're in, as I like to consider it, the version of a new normal. So I don't necessarily consider us to actually be on the, I guess you could say, the ending part of the pandemic, but more along the lines of the other side of the mountain, if that makes any sense. So where at the beginning of this whole onslaught of the pandemic, it was centered around, you know, oh my God, we're having to close. What do we do? How do I find out about funding, which is the number one thing that everybody was concerned about. Now that we are technically on the other side, what we're hearing is almost identical, as crazy as it sounds. So people are still concerned about funding. Funding is still a huge one. And also traffic. So now that we are back open or partially open, depending on what industry you're in, how do we get our traffic back? How do we get people back into the establishment? And one of the big things that a lot of businesses were talking about is like, yes, we're so happy that we're able to, to open back up. People wanted to open back up, but people forgot the big picture. And the big picture was, well, once these businesses open back up, are their staff, actually going to come back as well?
Yes.
Because a lot of people still are kind of on the fence as far as going back into certain work environments, particularly if they're coming in contact with customers on a regular basis. And then you have the different guidelines that are ever changing for a small business owner. So that is like I guess you could say, another little cherry on top that business owners have to be concerned with. But funding, and that's funding on the loan side, the grant side of the house is still huge. And so are what we consider professional development resources for business owners. So we still have a lot of businesses who are calling to find out how to put their business plan together, right? Because back when the businesses were open with their normal hours, I guess you could say pre-pandemic, the main focus was the front of the house, getting the business up and running and just running with it. But as businesses began to slow or in some cases shut down, you had a lot of business owners who had that time and wanted to actually gain that knowledge. It's like, okay, I want to apply for this grant, but it's telling me that I should have like a business plan. Never put together a business plan.
Why should I? Because I've been running so well without one.
Right. And some people are like, well, I didn't need a business plan because I, self-funded. And I was told when you self-fund, you don't need a business plan, which is strange because I'm a huge proponent. Regardless of how you fund it, you should have a business plan because I just consider it like a stepping stone and actually like a guide for you as a business owner to make sure that you're hitting those different milestones that are so important and impactful for your business. Because the ultimate goal is not for you just to, survive. The goal is for you to thrive in the long run. So I think those, as I call them, IDPs or individual development planners, just as a whole for business owners have been very impactful on the individual side of the house, and then the funding and the loan side has been very impactful for the business as a whole. So a lot of business owners have been attending different resource events, which are still, a lot of them are still virtual. There are a few that are actually in person now. And then there's different cohorts and just resources that are available to them, like the Helm Project. And then you have the Maestro Center with their program that they're rolling out with, which actually has a grant opportunity at the end. So make sure y'all check that out. So there's just these really cool things that everybody have that they're rolling out with that's just extremely impactful for business owners, no matter what stage that they're in. And that's something else to take into consideration, too, because you have a lot of people who were working on what I consider like your regular 9-to-5 positions when the organization that they were at either took a hiatus or they put them on deferment. That was one of the key words, trigger words. Yeah. During this pandemic, a lot of people were like, you know what? I have this hobby that I've always loved. Now is the time, right? Because they had the time to actually focus a little bit better on it. And in some cases, it was a situation where it was feast or famine. So my paycheck is gone, but I've always been great at baking. Mm-hmm. I bake on a regular basis for my church. Everybody loves my cakes. People have paid for me, but it was just a hobby. Now is the time.
Right.
That I need to take it full steam ahead. And we've actually had some small businesses that have actually made that leap. Mm-hmm. And some of them are actually doing better than they were when they were working 9-to-5. So they're like, I'm not even going back.
Well, now they got the energy and the time to focus on it. Whereas before it's like, okay, I'll get it in. It fits in where I can get it in.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
It's very, very true. And not only that, I think it's tied into the situation where self-care, which became a buzzword during all of this, is so important. So in other words, when you have the time where you actually can relax, get the right amount of sleep, you have a tendency to be better focused, right? So you see the big picture more. You have a clear understanding of what is actually ahead of you. And then you start planning. We're not in that go, 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 go mentality where I got to get everything done because I got to be in the bed by this time and I gotta wake up at 5 o'clock to fight 2 hours of traffic type of deal, where you are able to actually take a moment, pause, and breathe. You can actually develop a better understanding for what lies ahead, right? Pathways are so important for individuals as a whole. So you're seeing just an onslaught of business owners who are startups during the pandemic. And a lot of people, think that's one of the most strangest things they've ever heard of. It's like, how do you have people, starting a business in the middle of a pandemic?
Sometimes it's out of necessity.
Exactly. Yeah. They got bills to pay. Yeah. And then, sometimes it's just, we got free time. Let's take a stab at it and see what happens. And quite a few of those businesses, are extremely successful. You have businesses that actually saw growth during the pandemic. I can attest to that myself. With my business, it's on the consulting and marketing analysis side of the house, but because of the industry that I'm in, it just played into the whole situation with the pandemic. So there are certain businesses that actually thrive during this pandemic.
And those who were able to thrive, sometimes they had to pivot.
That's
It wasn't
true.
all about startups.
That's very true.
It was about established businesses determining, okay, I'm not ready to die yet. I've invested too much.
Exactly.
How can I pivot?
Yes.
And that pivoting is what allowed them to take it to another level.
Yes.
A different viewpoint of it.
Yes.
And now it's like, I don't think I want to go back to the old model.
That's true. Yeah, people are finding it very interesting to utilize like all of the different tech features and gadgets. I actually had a conversation with someone this morning, and she actually had no idea how to actually set up PowerPoint. She's like, I know that sounds crazy because everybody's talking about Zoom this and Zoom out of here. I was like, it's just Zoom. But she was like, I'm not even for sure how to even work PowerPoint. She says, I feel so behind, but I just never had to use it before. But now that I want to actually put together a presentation, this is like step one for me, literally putting my feet into the pool. So having those business owners that are, as you just mentioned, pivoting and asking those questions to figure out how to pivot is so impactful, because I think what a lot of businesses are going to realize is that once they pivot to a tech side of the house, they are going to be able to do what I consider like a hybridized version of their business,
Correct.
right? So you're still going to be able to meet people face to face, but you're also going to be able to offer more virtual business for those virtual clienteles. You'll have business owners or potential clients from all over and not just in your local community. community. And some of those businesses that you would think would kind of be like, they have to have people walking in, are some of the ones that are most successful when they pivot correctly. So I've had that conversation on a regular basis.
Pivot correctly.
Yes.
That's the key,
yes.
because you have to know what platform will work with the industry and the business that you have.
Yes.
Because we know that a lot of the restaurants started drive-through who didn't really have a drive-through functionality.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that is a pivot for them. And then some of those restaurants that said, okay, well, we can't use all the supplies we have. Why don't we look at selling them or either donating them and using our station or using our restaurant as a drop-off point or a pickup point.
Yes.
So key is pivoting correctly.
Yes, and I think that was just very impactful to see those restaurants make what I would consider like a version of a bodega. I'm very familiar with those in New York, where you will have like a restaurant on both sides, and then right in the middle of it is like a version of a farmer's market that sells the same stuff that you would find at those restaurants, because it's all the same family. It's like a catch-all. So when we had those restaurants here that actually started doing that, it was very beneficial to them that they saw the big picture. Even some of the cities here, like in Austin, they rolled out with a really cool program specifically for restaurants, where they would help you with a whole entire guide on how to actually pivot your business that traditionally was within four walls and actually set up a patio and outdoor station that could service your clientele as well. And it was so detailed to the point they actually put what type of screws to actually look for the build out and where to go and get kits from. So stuff like that is what I love to share with small businesses, because I'm a firm believer that when one of us, thrives, we all thrive.
True.
And having them have access to that guide completely for free, Texas Restaurant Association, that's where y'all can find it, just in case you're curious, is important, for them as restaurateurs, because we never want small businesses to think, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Correct.
And that's where, organizations like Lift Fund, WBC, People Fund, the list can go on, PTAC, fills in the gap. And that's, when you go to my website, that's one of my favorite sayings tied into my business. We help you fill in the gap. And that's what I mean by that. It is making sure that, if for some reason A falters, we're able to get you to C, D, E, and F.
Correct.
We don't want you to stop.
Right. And the thing is, San Antonio has such a vibrant business ecosystem that so many people don't know about.
Very true.
Because San Antonio is a military town.
Yes, it is.
You get people who come in from all over the world coming here. Some of them are going to basic training. Some of them are coming here for assignments. Some of them are retiring here.
Yes.
And the spouses, be it a male or a female, like, well, we're going to be here for 2 years or 3 years. I really want to live this dream.
Right.
How do I do that? And they don't know where to start. It's like, where do I go? Where do I start? And podcasts like this, and then the various opportunities and agencies that are out there need to make themselves known. But the key becomes, you don't know what you don't know.
True. Very true.
And that's the challenge with getting the information out, because Lift Fund, WBC, Women's Business Center, Launch SA, all of these are well-kept secrets for those that are coming in from the outside. But the challenge then becomes, okay, I'm analysis paralysis. There's so much coming at me, or there's so much to do. Where do I start? What end of the elephant do I start at?
I like that. I might use that one.
What end?
I love it. Yeah, and I think one of the things that a lot of businesses have actually told me that come from other states is that Texas is one of the most small business friendly states that they've been in, and it has just a plethora of resources. But just like you said, it's like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, what do I start with? So one of the things I always tell business owners is to, of course, what is the niche that you're actually, trying to focus on? Because that'll tell you a lot about the path that you should possibly take in most cases. So if you are a person that is, say, a hairstylist, and you're looking to literally build up, your hairstylist business and actually get a space, then 9 times out of 10, you probably would not necessarily track down the Texas Restaurant Association, right? However, you'll probably track down the Women's Business Center, because the person may be female, your main clientele may be female as well. If you're looking to open up the shop on the east side, you probably will want to contact Sage. But I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people will run into, as you mentioned, all of the stuff that I just said, they would have to have somebody tell them, right? Mm-hmm. They're not just automatically going to land in San Antonio and be on the east side and be like, I want a location. I think I need to get in contact with Sage because they got a storefront grant, right?
Right.
So I think that it's important as people move into the community, that becomes part of that networking side of the house, right? I always tell people that your network can determine your net worth, and I'm a firm believer in that. So if you want to, venture out and open up these different businesses and just get involved in the community, you literally have to get involved in the community. You have to ask those questions. I'm a firm believer that there's only so many handouts that people can actually come forward for. Sometimes you have to literally put the bridge right in front of you, right?
Correct.
So in other words, you literally have to get on the horn. You got to Google because Google is your friend. And so many of us use Google already for everything else. It's like, well, if you can Google where a movie theater is, you can Google where a club is, you can Google about business resources, right? And find out about those different resources that are in your community. And 9 times out of 10, when people ask me, how do you find out about all this stuff? And I'm like, believe it or not, if it's not from an actual group that I am affiliated with, it is because I am highly active in different business resource pages. So I will go to Sage's page just to make sure I'm up to date on their newsletter that they have going on. And I don't even live on the east side, but because of all of the people that I come in contact with, I still need to be informed about what they're doing. Or when I have somebody that calls from like the west side of San Antonio or the north side, I can still tell them, well, hey, have you heard about A, B, C, and D that's potentially happening in the area where you're looking to possibly open your business? Something as simple as business owners having a clear understanding of if you go to the southeast side of San Antonio, your square footage is going to be a lot more affordable than if you were to go outside of Loop 1604. For them, they're brand new, so they don't gauge that.
Right.
Whereas somebody like myself, who's been here 40 plus years, telling my age, they will not know that, but I will, right? So I think them having access to resources, including podcasts like this, they're able to literally build a complete picture, but they're definitely going to have to come to the table in order to find out about those different resources. I always tell people there's no such thing as a strange question. You just have to ask.
True enough. And because San Antonio is so vibrant with so many different flavors and personalities and different sides of town, because the east side is definitely different than the north side, the south side, definitely different than the west side.
Very true.
And depending on where you land, where your home is, that's going to kind of shape your view of the city.
True.
And unless you're able to network or understand how to network in the area in which you're in, you might still miss out on some of those resources.
That's true. Very
because
true.
the vibe on the south side is definitely different than the north side.
Very true. It is. I still have people that tell me they didn't know that San Antonio has over 30 chambers. They think that's the most craziest thing.
I know, girl, you too. I told them that. They went, how y'all do that? And I went, you'd be surprised.
So there are a lot of chambers here. But I said, but what makes it so interesting is that each one of those chambers has their own unique feel.
Yes, they
and
do.
In some cases, you'll even find out that each of those chambers actually caters to a specific industry. Like they'll be heavy on the tech side of the house, or they'll be heavy on what I consider
financials.
Yes, I would say financial side and insurance side of the house. So, and with that being said, business owners then turn around and say, well, a lot of those different organizations and associations have like a membership fee. I said, well, here's what you do. You go to their actual website, you dig around for their events, whether it be virtual or in person. That's completely up to you, whether or not you decide to go, but go to one of their events. A lot of the things that they host is open to the public.
Yes.
Get a feel, right?
Yep.
So just because you're on the south side does not necessarily mean you need to just belong to organizations that are only on the south side, right? So you want to find something that fits within your scope and also something that actually fits within you personally, because sometimes you'll walk into a room and you can gauge it as a business owner. You're like, you know what, this doesn't really, as I say, meet my jam, maybe I should try another association.
Or either try breakfast
yes.
if you go to an after-work mixer
yes.
versus going to a lunch mixer.
Yes, because it's going to be different.
Totally different. Because I found that the vibe is different in the morning than it is in the evening.
Yes.
At least here in San Antonio.
Very true.
Because it's like I'm a business person. I need to get in, get my information, get out, meet and move.
Mm-hmm.
Lunch, okay, I can kind of meander a little bit, but I still got somewhere to go. After work, it's almost like hair down, drink in hand, whatever. I'm not,
It was supposed to end at 9 and it's 11 o'clock and everybody's still there.
Right, exactly. And I'm going, you're not necessarily what I want to meet.
Right.
But if you're a social person, maybe the evening vibe is better for you if you're not a morning person.
Exactly. Very true. Very true. And I think that that's definitely something for people to consider. But remember, all of that is considered like framework or foundational work for business owners, because you have certain situations where even just the business owner themselves, they don't have an understanding of that because they're not a people person. I've even had people tell me that. They're like, I'm an introvert. Oh, but you're running a business that's based on customer service. It's
so how can that be? Yes. And you want it to grow.
Exactly. Yes. You want to reach your target market. So it's like, okay, so let's back up and have that conversation first before we talk about anything else, because that is so important, especially now with us, on this tail end side, I'm crossing my fingers as I say that, of this pandemic, being able to actually build that target market, reach your actual individual people that you should, but still having a clear understanding of what it is that you're getting into. And also, tying into it like the situation I had this morning, having a clear understanding that even though you had a conversation on Monday and it was about, an event that you're planning in 2 weeks, with everything that's going on, you might actually have to bring it back and start back over from scratch and do something that's virtual. Mm-hmm. So having a plan B and C in some cases is even more important than it was last year for a lot of business owners. And I think something else that I definitely want to make sure people are aware of is hard conversations, right? What I have seen with a lot of the businesses is finance, right? We have no situation. We don't have a problem with asking for funding or saying, hey, where's the grants? But when it comes to submitting the documentation or actually filling out the documentation, that's a whole nother animal. It's like, okay, I want $200,000, but why are you asking me for my taxes for the past 5 years?
Because I don't trust you. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. I mean, we need some skin in the game. We need some traction. We need some proof that you're a legitimate business and you're going to utilize this a good way or in a manner that's going to be beneficial.
Exactly.
Because if I'm loaning you $200K, we got to have something in the game.
Exactly.
A business plan. Some sort of roadmap.
Yes.
That is show me that you know how to get from point A to point B.
Exactly. And I think that's, as I call it, those uncomfortable situations and conversations that a lot of business owners do not want to, have. Like I tell people all the time, their business is their baby, and so they don't want to just trust their baby with anybody. It's like, I don't want to get naked. I actually did a webinar, and it was actually called that, I don't want to get naked. And
I'm sure you had a whole lot of folks on the line, didn't you, girl?
And it did. And it was about business owners who literally don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations, or i.e. getting naked, right, about their business, exposing themselves, having those hard conversations, having no problem saying, I've been in business 10 years, but I don't have a CPA, or I've been in business for 8 years, but I have never had an actual business bank account. It's still up under my personal name. Come on now.
Right.
And then when you go to the next level, like you're trying to apply for SAM, which is the Systems for Awards Management, because you want to get government contracts. And you're like, well, I don't understand why they're not, approving me into the system. Well, it's because like the business is in your
doesn't
name.
have a
and it's
business bank account.
Right.
You don't have an EIN number. You don't
using
have
your social. Yeah. And so that's that getting naked, right? That we have to have a conversation with ourselves. The resources are there, right? Business owners just have to take their leap. And sometimes the conversations may get a little bit difficult, but they need to be had in order for them to progress and to actually thrive.
Question is it a business or is it a hobby?
That's true, too, because there are some hobbyists out there. And I commend them. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist, but I think they have to have a clear understanding that they are a hobbyist, right? So in other words, if you Love T-shirts, by the way. But if you make T-shirts and you're building a business off of T-shirts, but you only make 3 T-shirts every month and it's for family and friends and that's it, is that really, a T-shirt business compared to Sally Sue, who literally has like a full industry grade, T-shirt printing machine, and she sells like 500 shirts in a weekend at a festival and has her business name and all of that registered with the bank, and she's gone full throttle. And she has a regular, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So one of those individuals is a hobbyist and they're great at it. Then you have Sally Sue, who literally is building a full, thriving business. And their approach is going to be completely different. So I think that that's something, too, that business owners have to be aware of, because I have seen just an onslaught of people that love to say, I'm a business owner, right? But they've only sold like 2 items.
Right. Or they don't have business taxes.
Yes.
They don't have that Schedule C.
No, they do not. And as crazy as it sounds, Schedule C was like really turned into a bad word with me during this pandemic. And the reason why is because you have so many people who were applying for like PPP, and not to go down the tax rabbit hole, but when they would be registered as like an LLC, just like a single member. So it's just them. Mm-hmm. But for tax purposes, they registered as an S Corp, right? Because you're trying to save on those taxes. That's what it comes down to. When they come back and they're trying to get all their paperwork together for PPP, they're like, well, I can't find my Schedule C. Well, it's because you're not going to have a Schedule C.
Because you're taxed as an S Corp.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so then they look, strange. They're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm still, S Corp, but it's still just me. And so having those conversations, once again, getting naked with the business, for some is a little bit hard. So yes, the Schedule C is your friend, I promise. And for the record, for PPP forgiveness, be mindful. You're going to have a copy of your Schedule C, your 941s, your K form. All of that plays into a factor. And something else that happened this week that's big too, revolving around PPP forgiveness, is that the portal is open. And when I say the SBA portal, remember that portal is only open for businesses that received $150,000 or less. So if you received more than that, you cannot go into the portal. Sorry. It's for the businesses that receive $150,000 or less, and your financial institution also has to have registered as well. And there's like 700 plus banks that are on that list. And all of that can be found on the actual SBA's website. So you can make sure that you meet all of the qualifications before you go down the rabbit hole and then get that screen that pops up and says access denied.
Right, exactly. And that's so critical, because if you don't know what you don't know what to do.
True.
So information definitely is powerful,
yes,
and knowledge is powerful. Mm-hmm. Also having the Power 5, I like to call it,
yes,
in your back pocket, so to speak, or as your board of directors, if you're unable to have a board of directors.
Right.
So you have your CPA, you have your banker, you have your insurance agent, you have your...
bookkeeper is another one that's in there as well. Mm-hmm. And I also include mentors as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Those are key people that can help keep you on track.
Exactly.
And help mitigate some of the challenges that you run with. Because that attorney is viable when it comes to doing contracts. Mm-hmm. That CPA is viable for pulling documents, especially if you have somebody who does your bookkeeping and they do it correctly.
Yes.
That banker is the one that you want to go to. Hey, Joe, I really need that PPP loan. Can you get me in?
Exactly.
Sure, Paul, we'll call you in. Just come to the office on Monday versus going to the website and it crashes.
Yes. And that was something that happened too with this whole situation with the pandemic. We saw an increase of what is considered just like online banking. And a lot of these online banks, they don't have a physical location, nor do they have like a physical person that you can talk to. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And some of them were actually doing PPP. And so we have individuals that will call over to the SBA side of the house and they have questions, and it's like, well, actually, this is going to be handled through the financial institution that you're working with. And quite a few of those places actually have already shuttered.
Really?
Yes, as crazy as it sounds.
That's scary.
Yes, very much so. And also something, too, with business owners, with these different apps, right? Mm-hmm. So you have PayPal is the one everybody is familiar with, but just as a whole. But there are some others that are out there, too. My only caveat, I guess you could say, in relation to the funding apps that are out there. Be mindful of the what if. So in other words, at the end of the day or the end of the month, how easy is it for you as a business owner to get your funds, right? Do they drop into your bank account? Do they specifically say, hey, we don't offer banking for small business owners, but go ahead and open up an account in your personal name and you're covered. We actually have had that happen more than once with a specific app program. Please don't do that.
Correct.
Ask those hard questions, because what's going to end up happening is if you are applying for funding, whether it be a grant or a loan, one of the questions is tied to your financial institutions. When we call that financial institution that you list, and they're like, we don't even do business banking. We have no way of proving that, right?
Correct.
So that throws you out to the wolves. So please make sure that you're mindful of that as a business owner as well. So
undoubtedly,
it's a rabbit hole in itself.
Girl, that ain't a rabbit hole. That's a volcano pit.
Yeah, it is, because we have some small business owners where they have substantial amount of funds and they're literally having to prove that they are a business and it's been ongoing for like 3-4 weeks. People have about $12,000 in some cases. That's theirs, but they
Cash App ain't the one.
No,
Cash App ain't the one. It ain't. No, that's not what it's designed to do.
No, it's not.
No, go ahead, bite the bullet, get the free EIN number.
Yes.
And attach it to your business that's legitimate.
Correct.
Because you've registered it.
Yes. I love how you said that.
Right. That way you can be able and be positioned.
Yes.
To apply for the grants,
exactly.
For the loans, or whatever you need in order to sustain your business, take it to the next level.
Exactly. Yes.
Because ultimately you got into it, obviously, to make money.
Right.
You're doing very well with it, but what if you want to grow it?
Exactly.
What if you want a brick and mortar? You've been online all this time, but now you decide you want a brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all of that plays an impactful role. If you do not have what I consider those foundational tools just in place, in the long run, it can come back to bite you. So that's why it's better to just go ahead and start off on the good foot, as I like to say, and not have to go back and start all over again. But that's just some of the things that we have ran into just during this time with the PPP, just general loan, and just topics in general, getting people exposed to grant opportunities. As you mentioned, even with those, you still have to have your ducks in a row to apply. And then you have situations where, okay, well, I haven't ran my business in 5 years, but I started it back up and I still want to apply. It's like, okay, well, we need something, some taxes, some returns. And for the record, even if you did not have any sales, particularly in the state of Texas, you still need to submit your quarterly, reports, to the Secretary of State. They want their money.
That they do. And the franchise report.
Yes, the comptroller does not play about his coins. So please make sure in your whichever state you may be in, I can only specifically speak for Texas. In the Texas area, this quarterly estimated sales tax needs to be going. You need to turn those in. And then that franchise is another one. And be mindful, too, with your LLCs, with the franchise tax that they have. It is, I believe it's $1 million and under. You're actually zero. So do that, please, because if you don't, you'll actually end up with a fine
of $50.
Yeah, I mean, it's $50, but still, that $50 is business cards for some business owners. So all you have to do is just zero out that form and then submit it right back. Unless you have over $1 million in sales, then you need to go ahead and fill it out with the correct information. But for those smaller mom and pop businesses that have not hit that $1 million mark, it's quick, it's fast, and you can get that done. I can't speak for everybody, but mine is normally in July when it's normally due. So just be mindful of that, and also be mindful of your estimated taxes, because that is a way that you can make sure that you do not end up in a situation where you're caught at the end paying thousands of dollars in taxes. Please pay your estimated taxes quarterly on your business to the IRS. And in most cases, people say, well, I don't know exactly how much it's going to be. I tell people kind of just float between 15 to 17%. IRS has a form that's online that you can actually download and do the computation. I'm just a person that likes a calculator. So fill in the information. But think about that is you would rather send in something than nothing at all, right? So even if you send $200 every single quarter, that's $800 that you have already taken care of on the IRS side of the house. So when your annuals come around, hopefully you have that $800 that's already, in the system, right? Yeah. And you don't have to worry about that side of the house. Now, it may be a little bit more that you have, but at least 800 of it is already taken care of.
Right. You don't have to come up with $800 right before Christmas.
Yes. And something else, too, that I tell people that's very important with taxes and just overall payments, whether it be on the state level or through the IRS. Businesses should have, depending on how they are situated, so I'll speak from the perspective, I guess you could say, of a solopreneur, entrepreneur, they go by numerous titles, single member LLC. So you should technically have what I consider 3 accounts that's set up for your bank that's revolving around your business if you fall within that boat. So you'll have your checking, which is your primary checking, your primary savings, and then a draw account or a personal savings, depending on how you have it structured. The savings account for the business is where all of the funds go for your taxes or any kind of large surprise purchases or payments that you just were not expecting. So in essence, you will not feel that hit because it comes out of your savings. So monthly, towards the end of the month, when you have all of your invoices that have cleared around the 20th, 25th, that's the time that you literally take a good sized draw out of your checking because everything else is already cleared for the month and push it into your business's savings account. So you can do 10 to 20% of whatever is in the checking comes out, goes automatically into your savings. So when the quarterlies come around for your taxes, you don't even have to worry about filling it out of your checking account because you take it right out of the savings. And the same thing is true with having an individual savings account or a draw that's attached to your checking account that's in your own specific name as a business owner. So you can, as I say, pay yourself, of course, in another account, but you should have an actual savings that's attached to it too. And that savings can serve as a version of a nest egg as well as your own version of a benefits pack. So even though I'm single member, I still have my own 401k that's set up through my business. And small business owners, that's something that they definitely need to consider because a lot of times we get so busy with just getting everything just up and running that we forget, 20, 25 years down the line, my business is going to be successful, but I might be ready to retire, right?
And that's where that financial planner comes in.
Yes, because they're going to be the ones, and shout out to Chase, because they were the ones who said, you know what, Dr. Robinson, make sure, you got A, B, C, and D. We see you got benefits package from your previous employers, but what about, MFAD? Does MFAD have a package? And I'm like, actually, at this point, it doesn't, but I think you might be onto something. And so having that conversation, seeing what the offerings is, and in all honesty, it's not even a huge hit. And I think that's something that kind of scares people because they think that, it's going to be like, $1,000 a month coming out of their budget that goes into a benefits pack when it's not. In some cases, you can find it for under $100, depending on how you have them structured. Just have that conversation, as you just mentioned, with a financial planner. Get that knowledge because even as a small business owner, if it's just you, if you're married, something happens to you, your spouse needs to be protected, right? Or if a situation, if you're a vet, you go through the VBOC Center, Veteran Business Outreach Centers. Those VBOC Centers are important because not only do you have grant opportunities, but they can tell you about other benefits that you can also put in place for your spouse, for any of your independents, or I should say dependents that you have that are so important. So that's a whole nother subject in itself. But yeah, that side of the house, the benefits is extremely important. And that's why having those accounts set up properly ties into the business being successful. You won't feel those hits and you won't have sleepless nights worrying about how you're going to pay your taxes because it's already in the savings.
It's squared away.
Yes, I love that. I don't even cut that check, girl. Cut that check.
And be done with it.
And be done. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And see, that's where that Power 5 comes in because they can guide you in that because these are questions you might not think of, but they'll broach them to you. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?
Yes.
What about this? What about that? And that is a part of your board of directors, your mentors that can help guide and direct you. You don't have to be in contact with them every day.
Exactly.
Every month. It may be just quarterly. It may be biannually.
Right.
But they are the ones that help you stay on track.
Yes.
You may meet with them in January. This is the plan I'm laying out. So between the attorney, the lawyer, or rather the attorney, the bookkeeper, the CPA, the insurance guy, the financial planner, this is the plan.
Yes.
You check back in June. Hey, are we on track? Yes, no. Okay, where do I need to go to get back on track?
Exactly.
Then you do it again maybe in November, December, right before tax season. Then you start the process all over again. And before you know it, you will have seen substantial growth because you've been on a trajectory of success by making sure, like when you steer your car, you just don't take the hands off the steering wheel. You got to guide that a little bit, because if not, you be done ran into the back of a semi or hit the curb or something.
No, we don't want that.
We don't want that. That's dangerous.
That's very dangerous. So I always tell people it's about making your money work for you and you not necessarily working for your money. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And a lot of your one percenters and your wealthier individuals, that's something that they live by. It's about investing, right? It's not about, as I consider it, showboating or literally just picking up more, trying to do more, you trying to do more, but there's still only 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year. So with that being said, you have to find a way to make your money work for you. Work smarter, not harder. Come on now.
Warren Buffett has said something that I thought was phenomenal. He said, either you make money while you sleep or you'll die making money. So make money while you sleep or you'll keep working literally until you die. So your money's supposed to be working for you while you're sleeping. Those multiple streams of income does not mean that you have to be on those multiple streams of income. They need to be working for you, that passive income. Make it work for you. Acorn is one of the best ways I've found, and there are others, where, it's like you roll up the money and it's $5 to start and it just disappears. Just you don't even notice it. How many of us go to Starbucks and spend more than $5 on a coffee?
Very true.
Okay. Or you have a Happy Meal, and we don't even call them Happy Meals no more because they're almost $10.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Look,
so
I'm like, Jesus, $10.
Yeah.
Like $2, you got a free little toy. I'm telling my age again.
Yeah, you are.
I love it.
But reality is you can spend the $5 that you can save so easily and not even miss it. Skip a latte at that company.
Right.
Skip a Happy Meal. Don't go out to dinner that particular week.
Right.
And save it.
Very true.
So that your money can make money for you, so that it works harder and you work smarter.
Come on now. Yes, ma'am. That's what it's about, because when you start laying that foundation and putting those, different nuances into play, you definitely will see your business start to grow. And something else too that I tell business owners on an ongoing basis is you have to have some type of a plan. Right? So you can't just wake up one day and just be like, I'm going to be successful. Okay, that's great. But what's the plan? Because you never know when something is going to literally just throw a wrench into what it is that you're trying to do.
Pandemic, anyone, pandemic.
Right? And so that's why it's important for you to have more than one way. As my mama used to say, to skin a cat. She's country. I'm country too. So she used to say that all the time, and it's very true. So in other words, it happened, the pandemic. What happened with the business? Were you able to actually pivot? Did you literally wake up the next day and be like, okay, it's a pandemic, here's what I got, type of deal? Some businesses, literally, they were able to do it quickly, while others, it took them a little bit, but they got the wheels rolling and they moved on. And then others were just like, yeah, I don't even know.
This is my out. I've been trying to get out. This has just made it easy for me.
That's true. Very true, because there was quite a few businesses that were like that as well. And I tell people all the time, you have to enjoy what it is that you are attempting to do, because you will find so many business owners that will want to start a business thinking that it's just easy.
Yeah, I know how to make cakes, and everybody say my cakes are great and they're delicious and everything like that, and it seems so simple. That's why I said, is it a hobby or is it a business?
That's true.
Because some folks find when they start really digging into what it takes to run a business, they go, no, I'm good. I just keep it as a hobby, do my little hustle on the side and keep my 9 to 5. Yeah. Right. But for those others, it's like, okay, it's well worth it. Right. I'm willing to take that leap. I'm willing to put in the work. The sacrifices that are made. Is my family ready for it? Am I ready for it? Some sleepless nights, some of those ups and downs.
True. Very true. Because you'll have seasons. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, You're going to have seasons in your business, and don't panic. That's something else to make sure that you're mindful of too as a business owner. So you'll have seasons where you're literally doing fantastic. Everything's great. You'll have seasons where you're like, where is everybody? Like,
I've been ghosted. I've been ghosted.
Did somebody write a bad article about me? Let me check my reviews. So you have to be mindful of that as well. And speaking of reviews, be mindful of your social activity, because that ties into your business as well too. So when you are, whatever the business industry is that you may be in, just be mindful of like your Google business page, Facebook page, Instagram. It's hard to run a business and not have something on social media, right?
And it doesn't have to be on every platform.
No,
Let's
it does
be
not.
clear.
Very much so. Like my business, MFAD Creative Group, we don't have an Instagram page. People think that that's funny. I'm like, but my target market can find me on Facebook, my main website, Google Business, I said, and LinkedIn. That's literally where we live. Whereas somebody who is heavy on like the makeup side of the house, they're not worried about LinkedIn, right? Because that's not where their potential target market is. They want you to see their beautiful face and their makeup that they do. So, of course, they're going to be on Instagram. So you don't, as you just said, you do not have to be on every social media. Matter of fact, please don't.
Really? Because whatever you start, you need to keep up with.
That's the point.
Haven't you been to places where it's like the last post was 2017?
Yes.
2018? Maybe 2019?
Yes.
Also, people, if you have a website, make sure that the copyright date is the current year, not 2020, not 2015.
Oh.
I'm just saying, as a marketer myself, that's one of the first things I look at. I go to the bottom of the page to see if it's updated.
Yes.
Because if you have not updated your copyright, your footer on the bottom of it, how do I know that the content you're putting out is relevant
and up to date?
Yes. Hello. So those are little tricks of the trade that business owners need to be aware of in order to reach that potential customer, because everybody goes to Google to research. Everybody.
Love Google.
Love Google. Everybody goes to Google to research. So if they go to your page and it's not viable, it's not current, it's not up to date, you're not going to appeal to everybody, true enough.
Very true.
But the niche market or the target market you're going after should have enough confidence in, okay, well, let me explore a little bit further. Let me dig a little bit deeper. Let me see what else is on your page. But if I go to the footer and the footer says 2018, 2017, deuces, I'm out.
I love that. And that's very true, but you have some businesses who probably don't even think about that. Or they're like, well, I have like a webmaster who handles all of that. Well, their webmaster's just like, I'll just set up your web page, and that was 2 years ago. I don't have no access to that no more. So that's the conversation, right, that has to happen. And I think that ties into what I consider just your overall checks and balances for the business. I know people think that I'm crazy that I have individual folders for all of the different clients that I meet up with. Well, that's how I keep up with everything for them, right? When the last time that I spoke to them, when I checked into them, what were some of their concerns? What are we working on? SWOT analysis. I have to literally have a good background and be able to find the information at a moment's notice. So being able to have a clear understanding that the same thing is true for your business is important. Something as simple as a date, right? As crazy as that, or a post. And be mindful, too, that you can actually schedule your posts. So that's something else to take into consideration, too. You know, there are apps that you can actually purchase that'll do it for you, but a lot of people just literally just take to scheduling their post on their own, which is perfectly fine. You can do that while you're brushing your teeth, depending on what it is that you're trying to put out there. And also, in San Antonio in particular, you have quite a few universities that have great internship programs for their schools of business. And a lot of those students, they are highly tech savvy, and they would love the opportunity to help you with your website, help you with your social media campaigns that you have going on, just overall marketing, because that guides them and gets them their actual internship hours, that exposure, that experience. And it also gives them a behind the scenes look at what it takes to actually run a business. So it's not one of the situations where it's like, oh, I get some free labor, bring it on type of deal. No, because remember, they're still students. So you still need to give them some guidance on what it is that you are attempting to do and the target market and what it is that you're trying to bring to the table. But it's just good to have them as a great asset to help you along the way.
Agreed. Well, our time is winding down now. So give us a last couple of maybe like 2 or 3 tidbits that you would like to leave with the audience, and then we're going to find out your contact information if they want more.
Okay, so one thing that I will definitely say to the audience is, of course, please don't quit, right? Have conversations with different resource partners. Find out about those opportunities that are available to you. And I always tell people, when you hear the word no, it actually stands for new opportunities.
Girl, I like that.
New opportunities.
New opportunities.
Yes. And I always like to tell people, too, make sure that you build like a good, solid network. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like networking at different events. I mean network like you can contact that person and say, hey, do you know a good banker? Or, hey, do you know somebody that does good business cards? And be mindful, too, that the business owners that you literally hang around tells you a lot about how your business is going to be. So if you hang around people who literally run businesses that are a little bit shady in most cases, people will probably assume that your business is a little bit shady because you start picking up on those shady habits. So hang around those people that literally are doing something for the good, that you're passionate about, that you can honestly say, I roll in this circle, and be proud of it. So that plays an integral role. And please, for the love of everything, as I mentioned, pay attention to your taxes. Even during this pandemic, Uncle Sam wants his money. So September is rolling around and taxes are going to be due. So please make sure you're mindful of your quarterly sales tax because they're due in September.
No doubt. As well as the extensions.
Yes.
Those extensions that you put off now are still coming due.
Yes, that's very true. And also be mindful, too, for those of you all who apply for PPP and might have gotten funding, you're going to start to see those loans come around to be due as well, the first payment. So if you're not applying for PPP forgiveness, be expecting that to actually start rolling in. And with me saying that, I caveat and close on this. If you are applying for PPP forgiveness, but you have not been notified by the SBA that you have been approved, you are still expected to make your payment. So please be mindful of that. So you cannot say, well, I applied for forgiveness and I'm probably going to get it, so let me not make this payment. You still need to make your payments until they actually submit your letter of clearance and send it to you, and it clearly states your PPP for whatever dollar amount has been forgiven. Okay, so if you have not received that, then they are expecting you to make that payment.
No doubt. So how can we get a hold of you, or how can someone reach out to you?
Yes, not a problem. So once again, Dr. Shantana Robinson. You can find me just about everywhere, but on Facebook, I'm Dr. Bridge Builder. Name of my actual company is called MFAD, and that's Management for a Day Creative Group, LLC. One of the largest contracts that I have right now is through the Women's Business Center and SBA. So if you want to find me on there, it is srobinson@liftfund.com. Or you can email me at my main box, which is drBridgebuilder@management4aday.com. Phone number 210-960-7013. Whole bunch of information, but I would love to hear from you.
Undoubtedly, and she's not limited to San Antonio.
I am not. I've had clients even outside of the country before. I love y'all all.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. You have been a joy and a pleasure to have here in the studio and on the hustle, juggle, and struggle of small business. Thank you much, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
For more information about any of our guests, or if you have questions and comments, please email us at admin@PlemonsCPA.com. And don't forget to check out our website, PlemonsCPA.com, for upcoming events and workshops in San Antonio.
David B Plemons CPA Inc. is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of David B Plemons CPA Inc. policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by David B Plemons CPA Inc. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the Hustle, Juggle, and Struggle of Small Business podcast does not imply an endorsement of them or their concepts or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by David B Plemons CPA Inc. employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the views of David B Plemons CPA Inc. or any of its officials. You should always consult your own investment advisors, attorneys, and accountants before making any decisions concerning your financial matters. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact our office.